Alrighty. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the APhA-ASP webinar week focused on policy vice presidents. Tonight, we have a lot of great information in store to make this a successful year for policy and advocacy. So before we get started, we're going to cover a few webinar procedures. You will see here. So tonight, in order to use your telephone, if you would like to dial in to the webinar, please just dial the number listed. Once you've been connected, follow the prompts and enter the access code followed by the audio pin. If you would like to use your computer, just click on the use mic and speakers, and you can listen through your computer speakers. This audio and presentation is being recorded tonight, so it will be available for download later. So please follow along. In order to ask questions during the Q&A portion, you should scroll over to the icons and click the raise icon option. And once you have found that option, you'll be able to ask questions and we will unmute you so you can proceed forward. If you would like to type your question, just please type into the Q&A portion and we will answer it accordingly. So in tonight's webinar, we are being led by our phenomenal Policy Standing Committee. We also have with us our host, Keith Marciniak, APhA Senior Director of Student and New Practitioner Development, and Mary Ryan Douglas, our Associate Director of Grassroots and the Political Action Committee. We also have with us our Policy Standing Committee. So the work that's complete on the national level wouldn't be possible without these individuals. So we have Mary Bradley from the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences, who is the chair of our Policy Standing Committee, Dan Gallipo from the University of Colorado, with the Policy Standing Committee, Andrew Stone from Wayne State University, and Adrian Simmons from Virginia Commonwealth University, and myself, Jason Gaines, your APhA-ASP Speaker of the House. And so tonight's webinar is really packed with quite a bit of content in response to the questions that you found to be the most important to your success this year as a PVP. So while this agenda may seem lengthy, there are plenty of options and checkpoints within the presentation for you to ask questions and for you to share your experiences. We want this to be an open dialogue and open discussion. So we'll begin with the presidential theme. We'll go over who is the Policy Standing Committee, some of the roles and obligations as far as the PSC, also cover member involvement, followed by American Pharmacists Month, what do chapters actually do during the month of October, followed by policy vice president activities, policy issues plus patient care projects, and how it leads to advocacy, some of the available resources, and we'll finish up with some of the contacts that you can find on the website for questions in the future. This year, our president, National President Michael Murphy, came up with this idea, begin your legacy. And so it was during the 2016 Global Leadership Summit where he witnessed a presentation by Alan Mulally. And it was during this presentation about legacy. And it's not legacy in the context that we're normally used to, but more so, how do you instill and inspire your family and friends? So beyond your community, it's also how you treat yourself and your well-being. And so Mulally had said, if we can envision what we want our legacy to be now, then we will have a better chance of reaching it in the future. So tonight we'll discuss ways that you as a PVP can define your legacy by setting goals and promoting policy and advocacy on a personal level, and then also amongst your chapter as well. So first we'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Andy Stone, who's going to get us started by introducing what the Policy Standing Committee actually does. Andy.
Thank you, Jason. So I'm just going to go and give a brief overview of who we are as the Policy Standing Committee and kind of what we do. So our main goal is to bring to the attention of the association recommendations on policies which address the immediate and long-range interests and concerns of the Academy. We also serve to educate our APhA-ASP chapter leaders and student pharmacist members about Academy resolutions, policy-related priorities, and advocacy initiatives that will advance the profession of pharmacy. Some of the things that we do are we recommend policy issues to the APhA Policy Committee for consideration at the House of Delegates. We advise the association whenever they need advice for policy issues of interest to our student pharmacists. We review the adopted resolutions most recently passed at the APhA-ASP House of Delegates and develop an implementation plan for each of these resolutions. So this year, we're focused on the transitions of care, durable medical equipment, mental health stigma, pharmacy benefit managers, and prescription drug monitoring program. Each year, we review previously passed adopted resolutions from the APhA-ASP House of Delegates. So that way we can make sure that these resolutions are consistent, or make sure that these are still consistent with the Academy. We also serve to educate our chapter leaders and student pharmacist members on the policy process and assistance facilitating that process. We also work with the Government Affairs Department to help educate our student pharmacist members on APhA-PAC activities, and such as our fundraising with Back the PAC, our federal and state legislative priorities, regulatory updates, and calls to action. If you want to see more information kind of on some of the more of the details on what we do, you can go to the URL that's listed there. So one of the big things that was mentioned for this webinar tonight was how to get members involved in policy. So trying to figure out what we can do as policy vice presidents in order to get our members more interested in the policy process. And so we find that chapter members feel most comfortable getting involved when they feel like they're informed. So one of the things that we need to do as PVPs is make sure that our chapter members feel like they understand what the issues are. So some ideas could be to share recent news stories that you see either in like local press or on CNN, NPR, other websites that just kind of show where pharmacy policy is now. Even working with your state association and seeing what kind of resources that they have and what kind of information they're sending out is a good way to kind of get started and get people interested in what's going on around them. When we want to start locally and we want to think globally and act locally. So there may be some issues that are impacting your local community, and those can be ways to kind of get members involved because it's something that's close to home and close to them. So getting involved with these local organizations and communities can really help receive a lot of insight into a lot of the issues. So for example, if there's some key piece of legislation impacting Medicare Part D, it'd be best, or it could be really useful to be able to talk to patients who have Medicare Part D and kind of find out, how does this impact them, or what do they understand about it, and kind of get a real patient perspective instead of just saying, here's what the change is and here's what it might do. Kind of get that first person experience and get some personal stories in there to kind of drive the narrative a little bit. One thing that can really help is a lot of members will be able to feel your passion for when you're talking about policy and advocacy. So find something that's interesting to you and use that to kind of drive membership involvement. So if there's a particular aspect of policy and advocacy, like maybe immunizations is something that's very passionate for you, and being able to have student pharmacists provide more immunizations, that's something that you can use your passion in order to kind of get other student members involved. But the big thing is we need a balance. We have to emphasize that there's a need for policy, but not all student pharmacists are going to be immediately jump in feet first into the policy process. It's something that we need to kind of warm our student pharmacist members up to in order to help get them involved in facilitating the process. One good way to help get members involved early is looking at the mid-year regional meeting. We want to encourage you all to have yourself and your chapter members sign up early for MRM in order to attend, so that way we can make sure that our members are able to see the policy process in one of its finest forms. The early bird deadline for sign up is October 6th. The big thing for member involvement that we find is making sure to keep policy fun. Policy often gets a bad rap of being kind of boring, and if you make the activities a little more fun or put a nice twist on them to make them a little more engaging, that can really help get members more encouraged in the policy process. Because policy is something that no matter where you practice, no matter what you're going to do, it's something that's going to impact how you practice. And so kind of making sure members understand that, but are able to incorporate that into a fun way. So some ideas that we have are incorporating games into meetings. So having like a chapter Jeopardy with prizes, or utilizing an online game platform where your members can like text in their answers or choose an answer and have kind of like a quiz with prizes. If you need other ideas, we recommend checking out the chapter cookbook and even submitting some ideas of your own. So for our first kind of interactive part of the night, I would like to hear from you all. What is something that your chapter does or has done in the past to help keep policy fun and help keep those members engaged? Don't be shy. Feel free to hit the raise hand, and we can kind of hear some ideas, because maybe it's something that some other chapters can also incorporate in order to keep their policy process fun.
Okay, so looks like we have a few hands that are going up here, Andy. So let's start off with Derek. How's it going?
Hey, Jason, nice to hear from you. My name is Derek. I'm from Sanford University. One of the first events we have during the year is the Policy is Right, which is like a Price is Right style game where we have contestants come down and they compete to answer some questions about policies around our local region and nationally. And it really gets the P1s, the first years, involved early and gets them knowledgeable about the stuff that we're working for as a chapter.
Very nice. Thank you, Derek.
Let's go to Sierra Woods. Go ahead,
Hi,
Sarah.
can you hear me?
Yep.
So we did a Pinterest policy. We made like little snowmen for Christmas. And so we just talked about local discussions. It was kind of like a discussion base. So I'd say, hey, have you heard about this topic? A lot of people had heard a little bit, and then kind of did like, this is what it actually is. This is how it's really working out and how it's going to affect our patients. We also hosted a policy week, and we did a mock election during that time, social media posts that were engaging for the students, like asking them questions, having them share stuff, and that sort of thing. And those were the two biggest, I think, fun events that we were able to make happen.
Great. So Lindsay Kipp has a idea to share. So their chapter has asked for member submissions for policies before MRM discussion is encouraged and voted upon, and the winning policy winner gets a gift card as well. There have also been several other students that have mentioned the use of gift cards as an incentive, as well as using walls to kind of put ideas up on a specific board. So all great ideas. I think
Yeah, those all sound okay. Those all sound like really great ideas, and maybe something for those who are kind of looking for a new way to attack policy and advocacy and make it a little bit more fun. Maybe these are some suggestions that you all can use at your chapters to kind of enhance the policy and advocacy experience for your student members. Now I'm going to hand it over to Dan to kind of talk about American Pharmacists Month.
Thank you, Andy. As Andy mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about American Pharmacists Month, as well as what you can do at your chapters to promote American Pharmacists Month. So American Pharmacists Month is a time to educate our community on what our profession can do. We can show our campus and community the importance of talking to pharmacists and knowing their medications. The American Pharmacists Month is celebrated every October with the theme, Know Your Pharmacist, Know Your Medicine. And there are plenty of activities that you can coordinate at the chapter level to engage your members and community. Essentially, all the activities that you plan will serve as a vehicle to advocate. Some various methods to do so. Social media. Social media is a great way to reach out to many people in the community, both on and off campus, using your social media websites such as Facebook and Twitter. In fact, every year we host a social media campaign around American Pharmacists Month on Facebook and Twitter, which you can get engaged on through your chapter and personal Facebook pages. Additionally, writing articles or op-eds for school-connected professional journals or school papers, presenting a point of view or issue of importance to pharmacy students can provide a valuable point of view during American Pharmacists Month that you can promote through social media. Tweeting events is also a great way, and sharing photos and stories and articles through Twitter is a great way to do as well. In its essence, incorporating American Pharmacists Month into all of your social media posts during the month of October is a great way to advocate during American Pharmacists Month. Additionally, you can advocate on your campus. For example, you might have undergraduate students on your campus who you can promote and advocate for your profession, and ideally, we might not only be able to inform them what they can do in their communities when they go out off campus, but we might even encourage them to become more involved and become a future pharmacist themselves. Also, if you're on a medical campus, it's a great way to advocate to a variety of different future medical professionals and other professions, such as medicine, dentistry, nursing, physical therapy, a whole host of medical professions. And if you have that access on campus, that's a great way to advocate for our profession in the medical community. Finally, you can also advocate in the community. As we mentioned already, your events that you do in the community are a great way to advocate out in the community. You already have events planned during American Pharmacists Month. That's a great way that you can spread the word with our patients and community members. Additionally, don't forget your school resources. For example, you may have a media and marketing department at your school. Don't be afraid to reach out to them, and they can use their resources through traditional media, social media, as well as their events around the community to promote American Pharmacists Month. If you need more ideas, you can also look for the chapter cookbook, as well as our webpage, the American Pharmacists Month webpage. At this time, we'll open it out to everyone here on the call if they would be willing to share a story about what your chapter has done in the past during American Pharmacists Month.
Few hands. Megan. There we go, Megan.
Hi, everybody. Oops, sorry. My name is Megan. I'm from the University at Buffalo, and our school actually had a social media campaign challenge where each week we had our members post different things, either take a picture of them in their white coat or at a pharmacy, and they were their name was placed in a drawing to win a gift card at the end of the month, and it really just kind of helped spread our message and showed what pharmacists could do. And another thing that was done in my region but not at my school was they actually wrote thank you cards to all the pharmacists who have impacted their careers. And it's something we're implementing in our school because we just thought that was a good way to give back to pharmacists who have helped us so much and help us grow our leadership and clinical skills too.
Thank you, Megan. We have Michelle. Okay, you're on mute, Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle from Temple University. We did last October a week-long letter writing campaign in our school where we spoke to other students who might not have known too much about what the provider status bill was, had them write letters to their local representatives, which also put their name into a raffle where they could win prizes as an incentive for them to come learn a little bit more about the provider status bill and help advocate for provider status.
Thank you, Michelle. Did anyone else care to share? All right, we'll keep moving on.
All right. So next, we will start talking about policy vice president activities. And Michelle brought it up. It's a great segue to promoting provider status is a great activity to host at your local level. So to give you a brief summation about provider status is a movement to increase access to patients in medically underserved communities to pharmacist-provided services to provide health and wellness preventive services, as well as to help manage chronic diseases. So in essence, this affects a large proportion of our society. Almost 80% of counties in the United States are deemed medically underserved. And guess who is in every single one of those communities? There is a pharmacist in all of those communities. And so why is this important to us? It's because we have the skills and the knowledge to help provide pharmacist-provided services in these medically underserved communities so that patients have improved access to the services that we provide. We currently have 2 bills in Congress, Senate Bill 109 and House of Representatives Bill 592. And these bills are important to help us receive recognition under Medicare Part B as a provider in order to receive reimbursement for services, which will ultimately lead to improved and increased access to services in our communities. But what we want to do is we want to share the word in an exciting and interesting way. And various ways that you can do that include providing videos, such as sharing a Share Your Story video on social media. Share Your Story is a great way to tell your personal experience or the personal experience of someone that you've met that helps connect patients to what we can provide as pharmacists in the community. You can also conduct interviews. For example, recording podcasts with pharmacists. For example, if you know a pharmacist that works in the rural and medically underserved community, that would serve as a great way to inform our student pharmacists as well as our community members about the importance of pharmacists in medically underserved communities. As well as posters, you can create competitions to create posters to promote provider status that you can do in a very efficient way. You can also offer advocacy opportunities to your members. We all know that the best way to engage people is to allow them opportunities to be interactive and to become fully active in these activities. Now, we have some opportunities in the past where we've brought student pharmacists to Capitol Hill to advocate on the Hill, but it doesn't have to stop there. There are a variety of campaigns you can do on the local level as well. For example, on pharmacistprovidecare.com, you can send a letter to your congresspeople and inform them about your stance on provider status and why that is important. In addition, congressmen and women are in your community in various parts of the year during recesses. If you're not familiar when there's a recess, you can always go to your congressperson's website and sign up for their newsletters, and they will tell you in their newsletter when they'll be in town. And that would be a great way to engage with them, to inform them about the importance of provider status. Also, our CEO, Tom Mennigan, sent out a message earlier this year about engaging with legislators on the local level. Another idea, working with school administration, is to invite legislators to your school so they can see firsthand what pharmacists and student pharmacists do in their communities and the importance that we provide in granting that access to care in medically underserved communities. And what's most important is be fun and creative. If we can be creative and fun, we'll ultimately spread the word much more efficiently and get people passionate about provider status. You need more resources. There are plenty of resources at pharmacistprovidecare.com, as well as under the PVP page on pharmacist.com. And I would be remiss if I did not mention that we recently have created a PowerPoint slide set as well as a video to help you promote provider status on the local level. One final thing I forgot to mention was that we also have a campaign highlighting pharmacists as well as student pharmacists as part of the Pharmacists Provide Care Champions program. We recognize every month one pharmacist and one student pharmacist who have demonstrated a significant commitment to the Pharmacists Provide Care campaign and achieving provider status for pharmacists and recognizing them as a Pharmacist Provide Care Champion. So if you are or know of somebody that is a champion for provider status, certainly look for information about this program on pharmacistprovidecare.com or reach out to one of us on the Policy Standing Committee, and we can help recognize those outstanding individuals who have done an outstanding job to promote provider status in the local, regional, or national communities. Next, I will pass off to Mary to continue to talk about more PVP activities throughout the year.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Dan, for passing off the baton. So I will be talking tonight about working with your state associations. This has been one of my favorite parts about being involved in the policy process because you get to learn from the pharmacists who have essentially paved the way for your practice in your state. So I definitely encourage everyone to really engage your chapter members and find a way to plug them in with your state association. So as you can see, we've got some steps lined out for you. If you have not worked with your state association in the past, you can start by learning how your state association has student pharmacists integrated in with the association. So every state has a little bit of a different format for how they have students involved. There are some states where students actually sit on the board for the state association and are voting members, and there are other states where students are involved on the professional development committees and are able to offer their opinions through that route. So step one is definitely learning how your state operates. To find out more information, you can ask your predecessor or the PVP that came before you, potentially a chapter advisor, and if they're not completely sure about what capacity that students are involved in your state, you can contact your state association, go straight to the source and figure it out that way. And if your state association does not currently have an opportunity for students to be involved, this is an excellent opportunity for you to get student pharmacists integrated into the process and keep them more informed because you'll have a more direct route for information. So step two, you definitely want to develop and refine your ideas and make a plan for collaboration with your state association. So a few things to point out. This scope of practice for each state is different. So oftentimes your state association lobbies for specific changes in your practice act in your state. And so based on that, each year or every 2 years, your state association's priorities change. So it's important for you to get on the same page with your association and really collaborate with them so you're able to help move the practice in your state forward. Step three, implement your plan. So once you find a good collaborative effort with your state association, really think through your plan and put in plenty of time and effort because you definitely want to impress your state association and the people that you're working with, and also have the biggest bang for your buck with your patients, because a lot of the times working with your state association is planning a legislative day. So something I did want to point out, and you'll have to excuse my screen as I transition to another screen. This year, the Policy Standing Committee developed a PVP guide, and it's essentially an operating document that teaches you how to work through the resources that you have available to you. So I will kind of go through the table of contents very briefly and explain why I brought it up at this point in time. You can also find it right now on your GoToWebinar control panel underneath the handout section. You can download the PDF and have it on your computer right now. So the awesome thing about this is that we've got the guide broken down into chapters. There's your table of contents, and within each chapter, there's essentially steps that you can follow to help you understand what your role is in each one of these capacities. So I bring this up at this point because we have under Chapter 3, we have a bullet point that's working with your state association, and it actually talks about planning your pharmacy legislative day and also gives you more information and ideas about how to work with your state association. So I will transition back to this slide and then begin briefly touching on how to plan and or conduct a legislative day with your state association. So typically a pharmacy legislative day normally consists of advocating at your state capitol by offering health screenings for legislators and also observing the legislative process if you're in legislative session at the time that you have coordinated the legislative day. So the reason why we highlight working with your state association at this time is because you can collaborate with them. You can oftentimes expand what you're able to offer in your screenings because they'll be able to help you financially. And they also have the connections in your state that you may not have, and so they can help you coordinate the screening. So it's really powerful to work with your state association in planning or conducting a legislative day visit. So there is a timeline actually on pharmacists.com, and in a moment, whenever I hand it over to Adrienne, we'll kind of give you a rundown of some of the resources that you have available to you on pharmacists.com, and we can point out where to find that timeline. General, very like 50,000 foot view steps that you can take to plan a legislative day. One, obviously, is to set the date in collaboration with your school, so have it approved by your administration, and then also collaborate with your state association to make sure that's a good date for them. And then nail down which activities you would like to have. So you may not be able to offer a health screening. That still means, or that doesn't mean that you can't offer educational sessions and you can go and you can do a state hill visit. There's still opportunities for you, even if you're limited to screening, even if you are not able to conduct a screening. Step 3, really make sure you're prepared and you're very comfortable for that day. This is a great opportunity for you to share what pharmacists are able to do with the rule makers and the lawmakers in your state. So you want to make sure you're very prepared and ready to take on the day. All right, so something else that PVPs are responsible for is planning for the Back the Pack Challenge. And I'm going to semi-transition over to Mary Ryan, and she's going to briefly discuss some of the ins and outs of Back the Pack.
Great, thank you so much, Mary. So as many of you know, Back the Pack is our annual campaign where chapters compete to raise money into the Political Action Committee. And that's super important because about a fourth to a fifth of our yearly PAC funds comes from this campaign. So thank you all for participating in the past and look forward to having you do so again. One important thing to highlight, because we have so many different chapters of various sizes, is that the winning chapter is determined by the total amount raised by the chapter divided by the total enrollment of that chapter. So essentially it ends up being whichever chapter has the highest amount raised per student. It usually works out to somewhere in the $3 to $5 category. But that just keeps it fair for everyone, seeing as how some schools are larger than others. A few things to highlight is you want to be sure to have your event or whatever fundraising activity you are conducting approved by your school administration or any other officials as needed. You should start planning early because it takes a little while to get some of these things organized. And we also have some resources available to you that will be up online, updated on the ASP section of the pharmacist.com website, an overview of what the Political Action Committee is, some rules which are mandated by the Federal Election Commission, and then a checklist as you're going about your fundraising activities. The checklist is new this year and super helpful in terms of keeping everyone on track and compliant. Then, of course, most importantly, why should you participate in Back the PAC? Well, one, you want to get credit and look good amongst your fellow student pharmacists. Also, of course, to raise awareness about the work that we do at APhAASP. You know, you guys are the medication experts, so your involvement in the Political Action Committee and our advocacy efforts is especially important because not only are you a pharmacist, but you're also a constituent to the members of Congress and the senators to whom APhA supports, and who in turn support us, particularly with our provider status legislation. And then obviously you want to continue to advocate for the future of your profession, not to mention the fact we'll be announcing a special prize for the winning chapter, and that'll be announced hopefully before annual meeting, but the winning chapter will be announced at annual meeting as in the past. I think that's it. So back over to you, Mary, for some examples of backpack successful fundraising ideas.
Thank you, Mary Ryan. So as you said, just some successful Back the PAC fundraisers that we've heard on a national level that works at the chapter level. Pizza and policy, where you the chapter can purchase pizzas and sell by the slice and have a policy discussion. Bake sales, as long as you're selling to your chapter members, are most definitely appropriate. Raffle items, where you can sell raffle tickets. That is based on your school regulations, so make sure that you're adherent to any and all school regulations first and foremost. And then merchandise sales. Some chapters I've heard of will sell pins for policy, and they'll do lapel pins and or white coat pins or something fun like that. Just it's important to remember that you obviously want to keep it in a good price range so that other students will be willing to purchase it. Make sure that it's as we all know, food is always a good sale, so you can sell food, and that's hard to beat. And then you can just make sure it's relevant to your chapter and your chapter members, and it will go off without hitch. It'll be wonderful. And if you ever have any questions about Back the PAC fundraising ideas, please let one of the Policy Standing Committee members know, and we'll be happy to talk to you about your specific chapter situation, and we can help you brainstorm some ideas if you're a little stuck. So definitely feel free to reach out to us. And I'm going to transition over to Adrienne.
Thank you, Mary. All right, guys. So I'm going to spend the next couple of minutes very briefly talking about advocacy and some resources that are available to you as policy vice president. So when most people hear the word advocacy, they think of meeting with your legislator, but really advocacy is anything that you're doing to promote our profession, and that includes the services that you're providing at patient care projects. So we've included a couple of ideas of ways how you can actually incorporate advocacy into those patient care events. And the first of those is actually using a resource called the Policy Postcard. And these resources can actually be found on the website. On the next slide, we'll actually show you exactly where to find it, but for now, I'll just tell you about what it is. So the Policy Postcard is a great way for you to invite your patients to actually write to their legislators and tell them exactly what services you just provided to them as a pharmacist or as a student pharmacist. So these can be printed from the website as PDFs, so it's very simple to just buy some cardstock and print them on your own. And it's a great tool to be used as something that's tangible, that can be given to your patients while you're telling them about all of the great services that we can provide. The next thing that you can do is host a letter writing campaign. And again, this is one of those resources that we really already have the tools for you to do this already put together. So on the pharmacistprovidecare.com website, the letters to your congressman are already pre-generated in templates. And so patients and as well as yourselves can just go in and enter your address and get your congressman's information. And you can customize it a little bit if you'd like, or you can just go ahead and send the template the way that it is. But it's very simple and is as easy as just bringing a laptop to your patient care project event. The last thing that you can do is to hand out infographics on both state and national policy initiatives. So we have lots of infographics that are posted on the APhA-ASP policy and advocacy page that are new, so be sure to check those out. And there are also lots of infographics that can be found on the pharmacistprovidecare.com website. So those, again, are already tools that are available for you to be used. It's just a matter of downloading them and printing them out. The last thing that I'll mention is how do you actually make sure that these activities are being carried out at your patient care events, particularly if it's a patient care event that you can't personally attend. And one way to do that is to actually designate a policy liaison. And this is a position that would serve on your patient care committee. So it's a contact person. It gives your chapter members an additional opportunity to serve, and it also gets them involved in policy and advocacy in a way that they may not have thought was possible. So be sure to take advantage of that route. There are lots of people that probably want to get involved but don't know how to. So this is a perfect opportunity for you to give them some responsibility as well as educate them about how they can pass along the message about all the great things that we do to our patients during these patient care projects. Next slide, please. This is a pretty extensive list of resources that we have available to you all. A lot of them we have already mentioned, so I won't go over them again, but in just a moment, Mary is going to show you where you can find them on the website. So the first two that I'll mention are the capsule and the adopted resolutions, or the policy book, and these two resources will become your best friend in the next month or 2 months as you prepare for the mid-year regional meetings. So be sure to check those out. The capsule tells you exactly what the policy process is, and the policy book will give you a list of all of the adopted resolutions of the Academy. So those will definitely come in handy as you're preparing your resolution statements in the coming months. We've already mentioned the chapter cookbook. You're obviously attending the webinar, and we've talked about the infographics and the policy postcards. I'm going to skip over APhAEngaged because we'll talk about that on the next slide. But the PVP guide is something that I will just briefly mention. Mary has already introduced it to you, but this is a new resource, and we'd really like to hear your thoughts on it and get your feedback on it. So if you have any questions about content that's in the PVP guide, if there's additional content that you'd like to see added to the guide, feel free to reach out to us, because we're always open to suggestions, and we really want it to be a tool that you can use whether you're a brand new policy vice president or you're a veteran. We think that it will be useful for everyone. The next thing that I'll mention are podcasts. So this is something else that's new for the Policy Standing Committee this year. We have not posted any yet, but this is something that is on the horizon. So we are using this as a different communication media to hopefully talk about some policy issues in a more casual environment, and to allow you to kind of use this as a student pharmacist commute resource. So it's something that you can listen to in the car on your way to school, or maybe while you're getting ready in the morning, or during your lunch break. So they're meant to be 20 to 30 minute podcasts that give you some additional information on either past resolutions or pharmacy hot topics that may be of interest to you, both as a student pharmacist and as a future practitioner. We've already talked about the Policy Standing Committee, and I will briefly touch on the national and regional officers on the next slide. Mary, if you'd like to switch over to the website now, we can show them where those resources are located. So when you go to the to pharmacists.com and you click on Get Involved and APhA-ASP, you can actually click on the Policy and Advocacy resource page. So you all are probably pretty familiar with this, but you may notice that it's been reorganized in the last month or so. Hopefully it's a little more intuitive to use, but all of the resources that we've talked about can be found on this page. And we don't yet have the Policy Vice President Guide up, but Mary's already mentioned that you can download that in your sidebar, and we will also have it posted to the website in the next couple of weeks for you all. All of the appendices are also there for you to download as individual documents. And then many of the resources that have been developed over the last couple of years can still be found on this page. So we've talked about the capsule and the Book of Resolutions that can be found under Policy, Process, and Action. And then you can also find the policy postcards under Policy and Advocacy Initiatives. Perfect. Thank you, Mary. So the last thing that I'll briefly mention is another resource that actually is the answer to the question, who can I contact with questions? So the APhAEngaged platform is not a new resource, but a somewhat new resource for student pharmacists. And this year we've made a commitment to really promote it and get people to use it, because it's always been there, but we find that student pharmacists may not know that it's there. So the Policy Standing Committee in particular has made it a priority to get everyone involved in using this platform. And it's really a communication resource where you can post discussions and connect with your regional and national officers, as well as APHA staff members, and connect with your fellow policy vice presidents across the country. So we've already posted our first post as a Policy Standing Committee. All of the policy vice presidents are actually in one community. So you should, once you've logged into the website, it's engaged.pharmacists.com. You can locate the policy vice president community. And then from there, you'll be able to see all of the discussion posts that we'll be posting in the next couple of months. And again, this is a way for you to post your questions, share your ideas, talk about policy topics, and really just connect with the people across the country that you see at various parts throughout the year at the APhA meetings, but it's a way for us to stay connected all year round. So we really encourage you to use that resource in the next coming year. And with that, I will turn things over to Jason.
Excellent. Thank you, Adrienne. So as we approach 10:20, we'll now open up the webinar for any questions. You can raise your hand or type in the question box and we will answer them accordingly. Come on, guys, don't be shy. All right, thank you, Phil. So very helpful and informative webinar. Awesome. So once again, the webinar is available for download afterwards, so you'll be able to go back and re-listen to it. All right. Well, if there are no questions, we'd like to thank you all for joining us tonight. Please take advantage of all the resources. The Policy Standing Committee has really put in a lot of effort into securing these resources, creating them, and then placing them onto the website. So take advantage of them throughout the year, plan your year out accordingly, and things will be very successful moving throughout this academic school year. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us, staff, the NEC, or the Policy Standing Committee, and also your regional delegates. So with no questions, you all have a great night. Take care.